Hey guys, Nick Wheeler here again. So in one of my videos on finish grinding the Joe Perrone blades, I showed how I dial in the plunge cuts on the flat ground blades, and something that I came up with quite a few years ago. I've never seen anybody else do it, and so there's been a lot of questions coming in about it, so much so in fact that I haven't really been able to keep up with corresponding with people trying to explain stuff. So I decided the best thing for me to do would be to shoot a short video and explain what I got going on and why, and hopefully that will clear things up and help you guys out. So let's get to it. Okay, this is the block that I used in the other video, and what I've been trying to explain to people is this is way overkill. This is the very first one I made, and it's a lot more than you need. This one, it's just a block of mild steel. I surface ground it so it was nice and flat, and then I filed these corners down to the radius that I wanted, and that's where a set of radius gauges comes in. This is just a cheap Chinese set. I know specifically that this one on this side is a, I don't know if that shows up, that's a 3/64, and like I said, I filed these in by hand. If you're a machinist, you're probably going to want to use a corner rounding end mill, but you're taking such little material off, it's not necessary. But you just use this to go along and check that your radius is right along the length of that. But like I said, this is a lot longer than it needs to be, but these things come in really handy for this type of thing. And actually you can file it close, and then since this is stainless and it's a little bit higher hardness than this mild steel, you can actually scrape it in to exactly the radius if you want. Now this is another one that I made, obviously much smaller. I think it's 3.5 or 3 3/4 wide. It's just some flat bar that I had. It's a 1/2 inch thick, and this one on this side has a 1/32 radius. There again, you use this and check and make sure that you've got the right radius across the length of this. And the different radius is just going to change the effect of your plunge cut, like how round or how square it is. If you went up to a much larger radius, you're going to have a really long sweeping plunge. Now for the Perrone knives, I wanted this one on the big block, but like I said, this mammoth size block is really overkill. But you do want it to have some width to it. And as far as the paper, you can use this about anything as long as you can glue it down. But I like the this is some Norzon. It's a Norton paper, and it's a PSA that came from Super Grit. That one's like 150 grit. And then I go up to the Merca. This is the PSA, also from Super Grit. This is a 220 grit. And the thing you need to keep in mind on your radius is that it is going to increase by the thickness of your abrasive. So however thick your abrasive paper is, it's going to blow that radius up that much. And then a few key points. A lot of guys, when they're learning to grind, we get what they call 2-inch-itis because a 2-inch wide belt grinder, they'll be hovering trying to get that plunge cleaned up, and they'll end up with a divot right here. So having a wider block helps, but then you also want to focus your pressure all over on this side. You don't want to come out here and bear down on it like this, because this opposite corner is going to dig in and you're going to end up with a rut right here. But if you focus all your pressure over here, right over the plunge, you're going to be able to clean this up really easily without making any marks. Now it's easier, I think, for me with these blades because they have such a radical distal taper. If we're sitting out here with this file guide square to this block, it's actually not, it's just barely off this side. It's actually not even touching. And so this is kind of picking up light weird because it has scuffed it up a little bit out on this edge or out on this other side, but there's no divot. It's just scuffed the surface up, so it plays off light, and it might make it look like something's a little bit off kilter there, but like I said, it's just scuff marks. There's no divot in here. It's still nice and smooth. And so when we go to our disc sander, there's nothing that's going to be hampering us from just getting a nice smooth finish pretty quick. You also need to keep in mind that we have one radius on this corner and we have a different radius on this corner. This corner is almost square. It's just a little bitty radius that I filed on there. And so you have to switch sides. You can't do this side here and then simply do this side here, because your plunges are going to be different because you have a different radius on each side. So if we want to use this radius, we do this side. Once we get that side done, we turn the block around and then we do this side, and that is going to ensure that the plunges are both sanded out to that radius on whichever side we chose. Then another thing that I think is probably worth mentioning, it's a good idea to take a marker of some sort and draw in on your plunge, and that just sort of gives you an indicator so that you know that you're taking material off in the right spot. And when you do this, you're going to be able to dial these things in like completely dead nuts on. And I've heard some guys, they'll say like, well, that's cheating. And that's when I think knife makers are a really odd bunch, because I guarantee you're not going to have a collector come up to your table and see a knife with the plunges match perfectly with a really nice finish in them and say, well, did you do this on the belt grinder? Because if you didn't, I don't want to buy this knife. If anything, they're going to be impressed with your commitment to doing a good job and your attention to detail, that you were willing to take a little bit of extra time and dial them in by hand. They're not going to be thinking that this was some form of cheating, which to me, that's just an asinine thought in the first place. But I mean, if that's how somebody feels, that's fine. And I made my first knife when I was 12, and I'm 36 now, so I can stand there at the grinder and get these things dialed in right where I want them. But it takes extra time, and I still am not going to have as nice of a finish going over to the disc and my hand sanding as if I use this. So I'm an absolutely firm believer in this approach that I came up with. So you know, if you want to try it, I recommend it. If it's not for you, then don't do it. But you know, don't think that it's some kind of hokey cheating method either. So anyway, that's that. You do this, you'll be able to dial those things right in dead nuts. So thanks for watching, guys.